Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. It's a very rainy day here. It's a very rainy day here, so I thought I would do a bit of reminiscing to some times and places where the weather wasn't as foul as it is today. So I'm going to transport you back to Rome, because I went to Rome last October, end of October / November, and had the best time. And as I did with my cruise vlog, I really enjoyed the format of sitting down and talking you through all the things that we came across, that we did, that we experienced, some do's and don'ts. And it was quite nice to do it in that way rather than doing it in the moment, because I feel like I could get straight to the point. Do you know what I mean? Rather than it happened, like saying it as it happened, because sometimes when you reflect on something, you look back, it's probably a bit more useful than stuff that's happening in the moment. So here we go, let's go back to Rome. So we decided to go for the end of October, beginning of November, because it was my other half's birthday over that time, so we thought we'd tie it in as a little bit of a celebration / holiday. And we decided to go for, so we went from the day and we flew on the Monday. So that's Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday. Yeah, 5 nights, 6 days. And it was probably the perfect amount of time to experience Rome without rushing it. So this was my first time in Italy whatsoever. And I was so excited. I've always wanted to go to Italy, and I don't know why I hadn't before. It's just been one of those things that, yeah, I just hadn't prioritized, and I wanted the year just gone, 2023, to be the year that I finally went to Italy. And my other half had already been to Rome, so he kind of knew the area generally. And yeah, so it was just really exciting. I had all these kind of ideas of what to expect, and it definitely lived up to those expectations in a lot of ways. So we decided to fly with Wizz Air. We have used them a few times now, and to be honest, I've never had any issues with them. Obviously, some people might do. It just completely depends on, yeah, when you fly and the experience of it. We always get the Wizz Priority, I think it's called, where you get 2 cabin bags and you get priority boarding as well. And to be honest, it's definitely worth that little bit of extra, especially if you are trying to only go with hand luggage, not having any checked-in luggage, because obviously, you know, building in, you know, the ease at the airport, but also pricing as well. We very regularly just go with cabin luggage, and it just makes life so much easier. You don't have to go and pick up your bag and drop it off. You know, it just makes life a little bit easier, and we're used to it. So if you're kind of that type of person, I would definitely recommend getting the priority boarding, because yeah, ease of mind, and it's not a huge amount more than the base fare. So we flew from Gatwick. We decided to stay overnight the day before on the Sunday, just to extend the holiday a little bit. So we decided to stay at the Holiday Inn in Gatwick, and honestly, for ease of mind as well, if you've got like a morning flight, I wasn't too early, but we just wanted the security, especially as we're quite away from Gatwick. Definitely recommend it. We ate at the hotel in the evening, and it was just such a nice experience. Getting up in the morning, the hop-on, hop-off bus picks you up from outside the hotel, just right outside, and I think like they go every 20 minutes or so. It's about £8 return, or you can do just one way at £4. So for the ease of that and not having to worry about parking, because you were able to leave your car there with the package that we went for Holiday Inn, again, just ease of mind. We decided to go for like a 9-ish flight to get us there for just about lunchtime. The flight is about 2 and a bit hours. And again, that was great because we could then go and experience Rome in the afternoon, the evening. So we decided to stay at the Hive Hotel. Now, this hotel is fairly central. It's a couple of blocks walk from the Termini station. So when you get to Rome Airport, you can get a train straight from pretty much inside the airport, which is the Leonardo Express, to Termini station, and it's no stops at all. It takes you straight through, and it takes about half an hour, I think, maybe a bit more. And it's just, again, so easy. The only thing we did find a bit confusing was I had read up that at the train station, you have to get your ticket validated, and it's like a little punching machine. But these machines are very unreliable. Even like, there were some locals there trying to do it, and they were like, you have to put it in like on the left-hand side. There's a little arrow on the little slot, there's a little arrow, and you have to like make sure it goes in. And sometimes you have to try quite a few times, and quite a few of them were out of order, which is hilarious. But we did manage to get it, so that's something you have to remember if you do decide to take the Leonardo Express, is to validate your ticket. I don't know if you have to do it from the other end, but we did it anyway when we were coming back to the airport at Termini Station. It's just worth doing because I think you can get fined. Even though you've paid for your ticket, you could get fined if you don't have it validated. So it's just something, it takes not even 5 minutes if the machines are playing up. So we were able to walk from Termini Station to the Hive. I cannot fault, like I really cannot fault this hotel. Normally, accommodation wise in Rome, it is kind of slightly on the higher end than maybe some other cities, and we decided to go for a hotel this time. Sometimes we stay in Airbnbs and they are a bit cheaper, but just this time we decided to go for a hotel just because, again, it was a bit of a special occasion and kind of where we were looking at to be quite central. It worked out perfectly for us. And the rooms were lovely. They were so, so nice. The whole kind of architecture of the hotel is kind of designed around a hive, a beehive. And so everything is kind of hexagonal, and there's a really nice flow to it. Like the staircase kind of is like a winding staircase, but it's on angles. And in the room as well, the room has a really nice kind of flow, but in a slightly angular way. And the staff were brilliant. The rooftop bar is definitely worth a visit, and you can see pretty much, it's one of those things you imagine from being like on a rooftop bar in Rome. It's just stunning. And there was a church which was just at the end of our street, and you could see that from the rooftop bar, which was pretty cool. So when we got there, we decided to have a little wander around, and as I said, this was really central in the fact that kind of a 20-minute walk, you had the Colosseum. Kind of a 10 to 15 minute walk, you had the Trevi Fountain. So even though it wasn't like on the doorstep of these things, with Rome you have to walk a lot. So make sure you have really comfortable shoes to be walking around in. You can take the metro, but again, there's kind of some walking either side of it. For instance, if you're going to the Vatican, if you get off the train there, you then have to walk a bit further in, things like that. The one station that is really close to a specific thing is the Colosseum. As soon as you come out the train station, the Colosseum is literally just right there. But apart from that, definitely make sure you have some good shoes to walk in. So we decided to go out kind of around 5-ish, and it was just, the sun was just setting, it was getting to dusk, and that is when Rome lights up, and it is so magical. I didn't realise how magical Rome lit up at night was. I almost prefer it to the daytime. I know that sounds quite strange, but just they're able to light all of, you know, the architecture and the different attractions so beautifully. So we walked through the kind of neighborhood we were staying in, and we came out onto the main road via some of the ruins and the main road that goes to the Colosseum. That's what I meant to say. And yeah, it was just one of those things, like seeing the old architecture with some of the newer buildings. It's just like someone just literally picked up all these ruins and then just plopped them down in the middle, and it was quite a lot to take in. And then obviously seeing the Colosseum lit up at night was incredible. In terms of food, you really cannot go wrong in Rome. You just can't. Like, even a substandard meal is amazing. And we were really lucky in the part we were staying in where the hotel was. You just walked to the end of the street where you had like the crossroads, and there was just amazing restaurants there. And we honestly did not venture out past those parts because there were just so many amazing restaurants that had great reviews. And we just ate pretty much in that vicinity, in that block vicinity. And I'm kind of glad we did, because sometimes if you kind of have specific restaurants you want to hit, you can lose some of that spontaneity. So we tried not to plan too much where we were going to eat, but we were just lucky that around us there were some really good places to eat. I'll leave all the places we ate down below, but honestly the food was just ridiculous. And we were also very lucky that a couple of streets down from where we were staying was an amazing cafe, and it's a cafe in the morning and then it's a cocktail bar in the evening, and the coffee and the pastries and the cannolis and the sandwiches were just so good. And it was the first time where I was kind of eating out on the street, because obviously outdoor eating is very much a thing in Rome, and it was the first time I kind of got to experience it properly, and it just lived up to all expectations. Our first main day we decided to just explore and just walk and see where we ended up. We were heading kind of towards the Trevi Fountain, which there is literally no quiet time apart from probably very early morning with the Trevi Fountain. We thought that going kind of in the start of the off season, which November technically is and part of October I guess is as well, we thought it would be quieter. No, there just seems to be no quiet time in Rome, because I know people who've gone like in March, April time and it's been really busy, and that March kind of used to be an off season depending on when Easter is, but that used to be like a quiet time. And then when I was researching, November was supposedly a quiet time, and it wasn't. It was still busy, so just kind of have that in your mind when you do go. Sometimes even though it says it's an off season, it's probably still being quite busy with other people there. So as you can guess, like the Trevi Fountain was crazy busy. One place we did go to though, and it didn't matter that it was quite busy, was the Pantheon. We decided to not book tickets in advance. They have these touchscreen boards that are outside where you can buy your tickets. So we decided to queue up. There's a couple on the left hand side if you're looking at the Pantheon where the arches are in front of you. There was some on the left hand side, and we just queued up. There wasn't a big queue. We paid, I think it was €5 to go in for just your ticket, which was great. And then we went in. There was a massive queue though on the right hand side, and we couldn't figure out what those were for. We didn't know whether it was people paying in cash or people also looking for an audio guide along with it. I don't know, but that queue was huge, and we didn't quite understand why it was so big when the other ones where you could just pay on the board and go in were fine. I don't know. Even for like picking up tickets, I think you could pick them up from the ones we were at. So just have a little look. I think they have little boards outside of what the queues are for, but yeah, we couldn't see why that queue was so big. But anyway, it was fine because we got to go in. And the Pantheon was one of those things that we didn't expect to love as much as we did. It's one huge room, and one of the things that you can do in the rainy seasons is go and watch the water fall down from the hole in the roof, and there's like a barrier all the way around that area, so obviously people don't slip and fall, but you can still get to kind of get the gist, even if it's not raining. The kind of scale of the water coming down must be quite insane, you know, because this area is quite big that is roped off. And there's just so many little details, and yeah, even there's a lot to see even though it is just one big open space. So you do get to spend a good little bit of time there kind of just taking it all in, and the scale of it is insane. So I do highly recommend going to the Pantheon. We then decided to walk towards the river and where the Vatican is. We stopped off for some food at a really cool place that was recommended to me called Anni 60. It's just off the Piazza Navona, and the Aperol spritzers are filled to the top. Oh yes, you will not be disappointed by the measures. Great pizza as well. We were definitely quite full. We needed to walk off that food, and so we headed to the river and kind of walked along there, had a little look at some of the stalls that are along the way. There are some really cool stalls along that part of the river. If you cross the river and you walk towards the Vatican, there's some really nice little stalls with Some of the things that you will see kind of souvenir wise, you'll see a lot of repetition, but there were a couple of things there that we hadn't seen around. So I got a couple of like little notebooks with vintage Italian posters on the cover, which I thought were really, really nice, and I hadn't seen them anywhere else in the shops in Rome so far, and I didn't see any after that. So definitely recommend those stores along that part. And just kind of just had a good wander. You have to basically just walk in Rome to experience lots of little side streets and other little neighborhoods. And obviously, because it is so vast, there are quite a few places that were kind of past the Vatican that had been recommended to us that we just didn't get to. So obviously we might be able to do that next time if we go and experience kind of some of the quieter neighborhoods. But because I'd never been before, I kind of just wanted to see all the sights. The next day we also went to the Spanish Steps, which again is pretty cool to see. Just be aware of people trying to give you things. So this kind of brings me on to one of my next points is you get a lot of people trying to sell you things, and sometimes it's in a bit of a crafty way. So sometimes, I think normally in kind of the top of the Colosseum, you get people trying to give you bracelets and then take lots of money off of you or ask for lots of money in exchange. Same with the whole rose thing. You'll see a lot of people walking around with roses, and they'll try and give you some and then like say, hey, I'll take a photo of you, and then they'll ask for money after that. So that's just something to be aware of. Obviously, if you would like a rose, then amazing. But it's just there are a couple of things that I'd read about before going and then saw quite a lot of, and you get a lot of the rose sellers by the Spanish Steps. Sometimes just kind of you can sit on some of the higher ones and just kind of look out, and that's a really, really lovely view. And normally if you're sat down, you're not really bothered by anybody. This was also the first day we did have a little bit of rain, so that's just something to take into account, is when the rain comes in Rome, oh my god, it arrives. It can go to torrential rain very quickly, to the point where my umbrella broke and we had to buy a new umbrella because the rain was really savage there. So we were able to kind of duck into little shops and to some little cafes to have some lunch, but it is definitely worth making sure you've got a good steady umbrella, or you're in an area, if it is going to rain that day, make sure you're in an area where you can dip into different places to shelter. So I thought what I'll do is, with my next thing I'm going to talk about, is talk about kind of booking things in advance. So we're very spontaneous people, and we do book things in advance sometimes if we know it is going to be crazy, but normally not like weeks before we go. Sometimes, like when we were in Barcelona, we booked going to the Sagrada Familia, I think like the day before or 2 days before, while we were in Barcelona. But we like to keep it quite, you know, casual. We're not very much, you know, people who are gonna plan out their time to the minute. However, when you are going to Rome, I would definitely suggest getting tickets in advance, and I mean weeks, sometimes months in advance, for places like the Colosseum and the Vatican, because we tried to book Colosseum tickets in advance. You couldn't get anything unless it was an expensive tour. Same for the Vatican, nothing. So we had to queue up for our tickets at the Colosseum. Now there are a couple of different ticket stations, and this is something, if you are going to queue up on the day, or, you know, kind of on another day and then go next day or whatever, there's one ticket station which is along the road of the Colosseum, and it's near the Forum. Now I suggest going to that ticket station, because we queued for, I think, about an hour and a half, something like that, and then we got our tickets. And then by the time we had then got down to the Colosseum and the ticket stations right near the Colosseum, that queue, oh my gosh, I've never seen a queue like that before in my life. It was insane, and the people in the queue looked like they had been waiting for hours, much more than we had. So if you're going to go to a ticket station, go to the one a little bit further away from the Colosseum, because it isn't as busy and you're more likely to not waste your whole day just standing in a line. So we managed to get some, what we did was we were really chill. We decided we were going to get some food before we joined the queue. So we had some of the really nice like sandwiches that you can get, the really big ones. And we queued up with those, ate our sandwiches there, and you know what, it was okay, you know, everyone was in it together. But we also had heard from somebody in the queue that they had tried to buy tickets. I think, I want to say it was like a month in advance, and they couldn't get any. So that is something to really think about if you are going, is to book as far in advance as possible if you don't want to go on one of the tours, because that can rack up the price a little bit. I think the pricing for the Colosseum and the Forum, I think, was about 19 euros each, I think. So whereas a tour can be like 50 euros plus. So I think it depends on what type of thing you're going for. We don't normally like to do tours because we like to go at our own pace. And if we do anything, we'll look up a thing on YouTube and put our headphones in. But we really just like to go at our own pace and absorb things in our own time. So that's what we decided to do. Obviously, if you want to go on a tour, there are options, but just bear in mind they are a bit more expensive. The Colosseum is so worth a visit though. The scale of it, the history, there's a lot of boards up so you can kind of read up about the history of it and how it was made, and it's just definitely worth a visit. Definitely recommend doing that. We got, I think, a 3 o'clock slot, and everything kind of started to shut around 4-ish. So you could probably want to go for a little bit earlier than that if you can, but it just depends on what tickets you get if you're queuing up on the day. Things like the gift shops, I think, closed bang on 4, but you could stay until about 4:30. I think you had to be out by 4:30. So that's again something to keep in mind if you are going and you do want to get souvenirs. But to be honest, there were some great places you could get souvenirs elsewhere. There aren't a huge amount of good places. I mean, in the fact that there's a lot of stuff that sells the same sort of thing, whereas in other places we've normally been able to find things that are, you know, a little bit more, not unusual, but things you don't see all around. So that's something to also bear in mind. But to be honest, the tourist information gift shop is really, really cool. There's some really nice bits in there that I didn't really see elsewhere. So even though we didn't get tickets to actually going to the main part of the Vatican, we decided to still go and queue up to go to St. Peter's Basilica, because that is free to go to. And this was the day that it rained so much. It was fun. It was fun, okay, but my God, we got soaked. You queue up and the queue goes all the way around the main kind of square. There's a lot of pushing going on near towards the end. I won't go into it too much, but just be prepared. Come with waterproofs if it's going to rain, because the rain just goes sideways in that part. But again, highly recommend going to see it. I think we queued for maybe an hour, so it wasn't as bad as the Colosseum ticket line. But again, so worth going to see. It's good to kind of go down into like the tombs as well. That's a really cool place to have a look at, where all the previous popes have been laid to rest. And it's just, yeah, it's just beautiful to see. So after a very soggy time around the Vatican, we decided to grab some food before going back. We wouldn't recommend eating around the Vatican, even if you are quite a few streets away. We had our one and only disappointing meal, which was the only disappointing meal we had while in Rome. But I would probably wait until you are quite a way away, probably even, you know, towards some of the outer neighborhoods if you're going away from the river, or to cross the river and eat somewhere there, because we really weren't overly impressed. And we were a fair few blocks from the Vatican itself. Now, one thing I did forget to say is the gelato in Rome severely lived up to my expectation and then blew my mind even more. We were very lucky in the fact that we had an amazing gelato place just around the corner, and you can bet that I went there every night. I even went there on the last day before we left to go to the station, because it was so good. I think it was rated like in the top 10 of gelato places on TripAdvisor. That was on the little board outside. It's run by the most lovely people. The flavors are out of this world. I can't even tell you. I'll put some of the flavours that we had, but some of the highlights were definitely salted caramel, pistachio, the like Nutella hazelnut one. I think I even had one which was their own one, because we were staying near the Opera House. They had one called like Opera, and it had eggnog in it. And I don't normally like eggnog, but this was ridiculously good. So feel free to play around with flavours. You can normally get like kind of 1 or 2 scoops, and again, it's very reasonable. So just feel free to sometimes go out a bit out of your comfort zone. Or the other one I had, which was really nice, was like clementine or mandarin or something like that, and it just tasted like you were biting into the juiciest one. It was just so good. So there we go, we had the best time. We have some places that we didn't get to go and see that we can go back to see. So we didn't get to see the Forum, even though it was included in our ticket for the Colosseum. So that would be something I would definitely go back and see. Obviously the main part of the Vatican, but yeah, Rome was definitely what I expected from it. I hope some of these tips have been helpful for you. Obviously, if there's anything more specific you want to know, just let me know. I'm not a travel writer or anything, but I just find these types of videos really useful when I'm going away and just picking up the little tips and tricks. And if there's anything that I've forgotten to say, I'll obviously pop it in the description box below. So thank you so much for watching. Let me know if there were any parts that you really enjoyed. Have you been to Rome? Do you want to go to Rome? Were there any parts that you found particularly useful? Just let me know. I will see you in my next video. Mwah. Bye.